Good morning and welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Emma Webb from Small Business Britain. And today we've got Samantha Hancock from the Derbyshire Constabulary with us. And she's going to share how you can protect your business with confidence and stay safe from those pesky cyber attacks. A few housekeeping bits from me before we get started. Like I said, do say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Maybe share a bit about your business. It's always really lovely for us to know that about you. If you've got some questions, pop them in the Q&A box, which is just at the bottom of the screen. And then we're going to ask Samantha those at the end of the session. We will be recording today's session, so you can catch up on anything that you missed, or if you've got to leave early or anything like that, it's absolutely fine. We'll send that out to you tomorrow in an email newsletter. You will also be eligible for a mentoring session from attending this session, and we'll also send you the link to sign up for that in the newsletter tomorrow. I want to say a big, huge thanks to Lloyds Bank Academy for supporting this webinar and making it possible. Do have a look at their website. They've got so many free digital skills training courses and resources, so please do check them out because there's loads more that that can help you there. Gail from Lloyds is actually on the call this morning, and I'm sure she'll be popping lots of lovely, helpful links in the chat, so do keep an eye out for her and have a look at those. Okay, Samantha, I think that is probably enough from me. I know we've got a lot to get through, so I'll hand over to you and I'll see you at the end for questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Emma. Good morning, everybody. My name's Sam Hancock. I am from Derbyshire Police and I'm a Cyber Protect Officer. Just to make you aware of how the network works, there is a Team Cyber UK and each force does actually have a Cyber Protect Officer, which you are welcome to tap into. So do contact your local force. And what I'm wanting to do is go through this morning some of the key tips, and it's around being non-technical. I want you to be able to change and amend some of your behaviours in order that you can reduce the risk against you, your business and your money. So contact details there. If anybody should need them, I am contactable either via mobile phone or on email. So please feel free to take a note of those. I think Emma's going to make the slides available as a PDF afterwards. If that's not possible or you want to drop me a line directly for some of these resources, please do email me. It's what we're here for. So what do we mean by cybercrime and cybersecurity? Cyber's a funny word that encompasses an awful lot. But in terms of what we're looking at today, cybercrime we're defining as criminal activity carried out by means of devices and or the internet. In terms of cybersecurity, what we're going to cover is protecting yourself, your organisation and your customers in today's interconnected world. But that has to be through a multi-layered process. It's not just sticking an antivirus on something. We need to work as a trio of people, process and technology. So how much of an issue is it? It's massive, to be perfectly honest. If I start off with a stat that might shock you, actually, more than half of all reported crime is now cyber or fraud related. And that is despite the fact it is significantly underreported as a crime type. Statistically, 95% of cybersecurity breaches are down to human error. The average cost of a cyber attack to a small business is around £8,500. For larger organisations, it's more likely to be sort of around the £13,000–14,000 mark. However, if you have a ransomware incident and you end up in a position where you do have to pay, we can be talking hundreds of thousands of pounds. Just on that line, in terms of ransom, police advice will never deviate from you should never pay. In my experience, I would say more than 75% of organisations do not have a cyber incident response plan. And this doesn't have to be some great big tome on a bookshelf like there is behind me. I'm talking about having a plan for if your phone line goes down, for if your website goes down, for how you are going to be able to communicate with your clients. And that can be you as a one-man band, or it could be as a slightly bigger but small organisation. It really is about failing to plan is planning to fail. Have something there in the background to work on, just in the worst case scenario. There are lots of different guides relating to response to cyber incidents on the National Cybersecurity website, which you can tap into free of charge. So, what are the current threats to business? I've been doing this role for about 9 years now, firstly for Leicestershire, now more latterly Derbyshire Police. In terms of impact, it's predominantly ransomware and data exfiltration incidents. May I just say Marks and Spencers at this point. But it isn't just the big companies that are being targeted, and I can talk about some more sort of cases if we get time later. In terms of numbers, we're talking about phishing and social engineering. Along that line, we have what we call mandate fraud, CEO fraud, whaling, big boss. It has all sorts of names, but basically it's manipulation of funds, and I shall go through that. The rather jauntily named computer software service fraud, we've taken to calling this remote access fraud. So it's about your devices potentially being used, and we'll cover that as well. But it's really important to remember that you are not necessarily the target. Anybody can be a target or victim. Now, it's a little bit of an out of date example, but I think it just goes to prove the point. If we look back to 2016, 2017, when some of you will remember that local authorities and the National Health Service had huge issues in terms of cyber incidents, not being able to access their systems, etc. And that was as a result of something called NotPetya and WannaCry. And they were ransomware attacks. The NHS actually was not a target. They were what we would call collateral damage. So basically, millions of malicious emails are sent out. You go to click on a link, it installs the ransomware. Coupled with the fact that being a very large organisation, the NHS don't necessarily update quite as expeditiously as the rest of us in terms of Windows updates. So they hadn't installed the May update, and when the attack happened in June, they were all taken down by that. So it's really important that we think we can get caught up in these things. We're not necessarily an individual target, and how important updates are. So, where is the risk? Predominantly, we fall into two categories. One is deliberate and targeted. So, this is big things, organised criminals, state actors, investigative journalists, hacktivists, extremists. There is also, of course, the ever present risk of competitors. But in terms of my experience over these last 9 years, much closer to home and with much more potential, we need to recognise the insider threat. But that doesn't have to be particularly malicious. It could be disgruntled and overlooked staff. It could be former employees. Some of it is around poor systems admin in relation to what we call role changes and leavers. So what we say is it's really important just to allow minimal access to things. Don't give blanket access to everybody. That's where the mistakes and errors can occur. Staff under duress. I'm quite sure as people in small businesses, or those of you that are self-employed, will totally understand this. When we're tired and we're rushing, we tend to make mistakes, and that is where the errors occur. And in particular, I would say it's down to a lack of awareness of cyber issues such as malware and social engineering. And we'll cover some of that as we go through. So ransomware is a type of malicious software, abbreviated to malware, that attempts to extort money, and it's generally cryptocurrency, and it infects and takes control of devices, files, networks, etc. There is a type called lockware, so you get a pop-up on a screen that essentially prevents usage. Or alternatively, more commonly, it uses encryption. So it doesn't damage the files that you have, but basically it sort of locks them up so you can't use them. It most commonly occurs when a link in an email or what looks like a harmless email attachment is opened that allows the malware to be installed. So we need to have things in place where we don't auto run, and particularly where that's executable files. The problem is these things don't appear as obvious executable files, which you probably wouldn't click. It will masquerade as something else. I had quite an interesting email the other day from an organisation that was purporting to be a quote for something, which isn't in my line of work, so I knew it wasn't going to be for me. But the little symbol on it was a PowerPoint. And although it said it was a PDF, when I did some investigation into it, it was quite obviously actually a hyperlink that took you somewhere else. So there's all sorts of ways in which they can change the appearance of things, particularly within email messages. So our advice, particularly, is to have regular backups, including non-cloud ones. But most importantly, to exercise extreme caution with email links and attachments. And these also include ones that look like they're internal. And don't forget that other people's email can be compromised. So although you recognise the name and address, has that particular message really come from that individual? And just in relation to backups, we advocate what we call a 3-2-1. So it's 3 different copies, 2 different locations, preferably one being an offline version, such as I've got one of these portable drives that's encrypted and security coded. Um, it's a great idea to have all of those. If you can't get into your business premises, if you can't access your cloud services, you've still got means to be able to carry on. And of course, of particular importance is anything to do with billing and contact information so that you can, in some form, continue day-to-day business while you resolve the greater issue. I did want to alert you to this site. I'm pleased to say they've actually upgraded this now, so it does look more professional and less like it's been done on a Blue Peter episode. But this is actually a free site that's available from Europol. And it's called nomoreransom.org. And basically, when you resolve a ransomware incident, it's because you get a decryption key. So they encrypt the files, you need the decryption key to unencrypt. As and when these become available, they're put up on this website free of charge. So it would be a first port of call should the worst happen, because the decryption key, if it's an older version, may be available. Do apologise, seem to be struggling with my hay fever this morning. Wanted to highlight particularly Office 365 and OneDrive phishing emails that we've seen a lot of. So these, you will receive an email that claims issues such as non-delivery receipts, your account's not syncing, your mailbox is full, your account needs to be validated or revalidated, and that you run the risk of your account soon being suspended. And these are typically the sort of things that we see. So at the bottom there is a copy of the mailbox message. There is a button, as you can see, that wants you to do something. And the screenshot at the top, as to those of you who use Microsoft will be well aware, that's very much like a Microsoft login screen. But unfortunately, I can assure you it isn't. It is a copycat one. And that's what phishing emails do. They always have a button or a shortcut for you to log in or resolve an issue. I want to give you a simple rule. I don't want you hovering over things to see where they come from. I don't want you checking URLs. Mistakes can be made. Please live by a golden rule, both in your personal lives and your business lives, and that is to never click on a link to log in or resolve an issue. If you get some sort of alert to say there's an issue, please always log into your account via a browser or an app, and that way you know you're logging into the legitimate one. So what happens with these? They've copied the website coding so that it creates a web page that looks exactly the same. But when you type in your username and password, what you've done is sent it to the person who set up the page rather than actually logging into what you think. And that's how we avoid those sort of phishing scenarios. It's not just emails we need to watch out for, unfortunately. Similarly with text messages, my rules again are not to click on a link. I also wouldn't phone a number that's contained within a message. So as you can see here, these quite clearly appear to be from PayPal or HSBC, and sadly they're not. And when the scammer that contacts you hits lucky and manages to use the name of an organisation you use, even though these are fake messages, they will be placed in the folder with your legitimate ones, which gives them authenticity even though they're not legitimate. So it's a really important thing to bear in mind. And it's not even just text messages and emails we need to worry about, it's caller ID too, because this can be spoofed. So the number that appears on your landline or your mobile device is just the number the device has been told to say. It does not verify where a call comes from. Unfortunately, at small businesses, one of the things you may face is your number being spoofed. So if you start getting calls from people saying, I've got a missed call from you, or why did you ring me? It could be that somebody has spoofed your number. So they've not compromised your number in any way. They've just made their outgoing calls appear as though they have come from you. If that should happen, unfortunately, there isn't any way of preventing it. That's down to the telecoms companies. But the only thing we can recommend is that if you start receiving a lot of calls, it might be an idea to put a holding voicemail on saying that you are aware that your telephone number has been spoofed, the calls have not been made by yourselves, and you are dealing with the matter. And it'll soon pass because they won't continue to use your number. Can we report these? The short answer is yes, and please do. We don't know what's happening unless the public tell us. So any suspicious or even blatantly obvious type scam, fraud, or phishing emails that you get, please do forward to report@phishing.gov.uk. If you receive any sort of suspicious text message, please forward it to 7726, which is a free service. Every single message that goes through is checked, and if any of the URLs, that's the web links that are contained within either the emails or the text, are found to be suspicious, action is taken to remove them from the internet. So you're actually joining the fight in taking down fake websites and protecting others. How easily are people targeted? Well, do you know what? Social media is a great thing. It's also a double-edged sword. It's very easy to find out where people work if you know the right sort of messages and searches to carry out on the things like, particularly Facebook. I mean, our advice is that it's social media, and if there's one thing I'd perhaps consider if I were you as employing people, and that would be to ask your staff not to have their employer or job title listed, particularly on the likes of Facebook, etc., because we know it is used for fact finding and reconnaissance. So if we look at the third one down there, financial planning, yeah, there's a couple of people there at East Midlands Airport. In fact, yeah, that's a really good one there. So people who work at East Midlands Airport, we know he's got a background in financial planning, so he may well be in the finance department. So that's who we'll target. What I can do then is use a free website such as this to let me know what confirmed real email addresses there are out there floating in the ether. And I now know Bill from Finance's email, so I'd be able to send him a fake email and try and socially engineer him. It's really important as well that we don't share too much information. We have seen cases where fraud has happened because of too much information on simple things like out of office emails. You don't need to include where you are, why you're out of the office, keep it generic. Make sure this is passed on to your staff as well. This is for your own safety and security as well as the business. We've got a case here where you can see on the right hand side where somebody's complaining about Avanti West Coast and a failed service. As you can see, there's a response there. Apologise for the inconvenience. Please DM us. And what happens there is information is sent back and forth, and it'll result in a fraud because that is not the legitimate Avanti West Coast. It's really important as well that you are extremely careful about publicly visible posts on social media, particularly when you're making a complaint about something. If you pop onto Barclays and have a little bit of a moan because it's been 4 hours since you were able to log into your online banking, you're telling an awful lot of people that that's who you do your banking with. It allows a fraudster an opportunity. And British Airways is another potential example. So I do remember a case where quite a high up member of an organisation missed a very important European business meeting because of a cancelled flight. He didn't find out till he got to the airport. Um, and once he'd had his moan on Twitter, he was contacted allegedly by British Airways, who offered a refund, took his details, and then very kindly removed money from his account rather than replacing the money because it wasn't anything to do with British Airways. Keep it to the bare minimum. Thank you for your email. I'm away for the office with no access until emails. If your query is urgent, please contact. The reason I'm quite hot on this is certainly when I was over at Loughborough, I was dealing with an organisation where a lady who went on an extended holiday to Florida had got quite a helpful, informative, redirecting sort of information scenario on her out of office. It stated that she was in Florida, that she was on an extended holiday. Um, it listed different people, different things. If it's relation to a staff matter, please contact so and so at HR. If it's regarding a finance issue, please contact XYZ. Um, and the finance lady received an email that, to all intents and purposes, looked like it had come from her colleague who was in Florida. And they'd even used the information to their advantage. They'd said, "Oh, I'm having a wonderful time. I know I'm not supposed to be working, but I've just had a bit of a panic. I've realised I forgot to pay X, Y, and Z. Here are the details. Um, can you take over and pay for me so that I can enjoy the rest of my holiday?" And obviously, that staff member thought that was quite legitimate, paid the outgoing amount of money, but the email actually wasn't from that individual. It was a very similar looking email, but they'd used it to socially engineer the staff, and it was all because of too much information that had been declared in the out of office. So CEO fraud, spear phishing, whaling, big boss email, what is it? It's where fraudsters impersonate a company director, CEO, CFO or similar, and there's an instruction for the finance department to transfer funds. There's generally excuses lined up. It might be discreet or sensitive acquisition. It could be that they can't continue in the very important meeting they've got because of an outstanding invoice. It might be something they're needing to put together because of a new potential business interest they don't wish to lose. They'll normally state that they're unable to speak but can only email. And this has happened a number of times where that said manager is away from the office. They've done their homework, they've either seen out of office emails, they may have seen things uh, like the company promoting the fact that they're at certain trade fairs or events. There's lots of ways you can get that information. In terms of what happens next, then, this is what the sort of thing you need to be looking out for. So if you just have a little quick read of that, it'd be interesting if anybody wants to put their observations in the chat in terms of the content of that email. It is a real one, by the way. So, believe it or not, that was received by a member of support staff from a senior manager within an East Midlands organisation. Over £12,000 was paid out unquestioned within 20 minutes of receipt of that email. The money cannot be claimed back because the bank carried out the instruction correctly based on the instruction they received from the company. Now, for me, this is actually a fabulous example of a really poor case. I think most of you would look at that and think, I can't believe anybody fell for it. And what I can tell you is, I have actually met on several occasions the person this was supposed to be from, And I would be polite if I was saying at best this person is unbelievably prickly, and I can believe that the more junior member of staff would not want to question or query anything coming from them. It does happen regularly. What we also see is invoice, funds, or salary redirection. So I've also seen this happen to self-employed plasterer who just had a Gmail account, so he hadn't even got a website or anything. How does this happen? We're looking at where fraudsters pose as a supplier, a creditor, or employee, or even as the self-employed tradesperson that advise you their bank details or remittance details have changed. A bogus instruction is created. These requests might come in by email, letter, or even good old snail mail. Don't think many people have faxes anymore, but we have seen that too. Of course, they look very genuine with logos, etc., because the fraudsters have done their work. You're asked to settle all future payments to new account numbers, and obviously, moving forward, the money ends up being paid to the fraudster's account rather than the business. Please be warned, your original debt to the genuine supplier or employee still stands, so you are still going to have to pay that legally. How can we protect ourselves then? Challenge any requests at all to amend payment details. And this extends to life sort of outside of business. In particular, if you're going through any sort of conveyancing, property purchase, etc., any sort of instruction from solicitors regarding paying of deposits, please phone them up and check with them. Don't take changes on email. And it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's a supplier, creditor, whether it's an employee, whether it's a tradesperson you've got coming to do work, contact them directly to independently verify that request. If they've sent you an email with a change, you phone them up and speak to them. Don't use any contact details within the change of payment details because they could have put false telephone numbers in. And do make sure that anybody that works for you is aware of this type of fraud. So we have seen sort of within schools and bigger organisations that have sort of HR and payroll, particularly where an email comes in from an employee saying they've changed their personal bank account details, and then the individual and the organisation is aware of it, is when that person says, "Why have I not been paid this month?" Remote access scams, unhelpfully called computer software service fraud. That doesn't mean anything to anybody, so we're going with the simpler term. This is basically where somebody wants to jump onto your device. Some of you may have experienced this from an IT support point of view, but please be alert to scam calls, pop-ups on your device. It could be internet providers, IT support. We hear contact from Microsoft, particularly the pop-up type things. Quite simply, it needs to be a rule that you never allow remote connection from an incoming call. As was said earlier, we can't verify an incoming call. So the only time realistically there should be a request to remote hop onto your device is where you've made contact with somebody. For example, I had this week where my USB port wouldn't work because of the Windows 11 upgrade. I put a job in with our IT and they said that somebody would need to remote port in. Now, that was quite easy for me because I actually got a message on Teams internally, so that was all fine. But certainly, if you're speaking to somebody on the phone and it's an incoming call, please don't allow remote access. Once they're onto your device, they can access anything on it. It really is quite dangerous. I want you to make you aware of WhatsApp scams. Now, this can happen in a business scenario, but it's across the board at the moment. What we have seen an increase in is where you receive either a phone call through WhatsApp or a message from somebody within a group that you are in, stating they are either wanting to set up a video meeting, or they are admin and they're having a clear out. If you want to stay within the group, if you want to leave the group, can you just let me have the code we've just sent you to confirm it's you? Unfortunately, those codes that come to your phone are like your PIN numbers. You shouldn't disclose to anybody. If you give that code, it allows them to take over your WhatsApp account. And unfortunately, they are able to message as you. So although they've not taken over your phone number, when they're contacting people in your groups list and in your contacts, they will legitimately think it's you. Who questions a WhatsApp? Really, really important message to get out there. So what can we do physically around things? How can we make a difference? It's really important that we understand our own organisation's culture around cyber hygiene and what your biggest risks are. We do need to really encourage the open reporting and discussion of near misses concerns. So if you've had an attempt on you, make sure that other people in the business are aware. If you go to networking meetings, warn other people. It's good to talk, as Bob Hoskins used to say. We need to engage and educate staff and or ourselves if it's us we're talking about. There's lots out there. There is a National Cyber Security Centre free online training module you can do. Or there are lots of people like me out there. Contact your local cyber protect officer. We will offer training and guidance. And then there are cyber resilience centres, which I will also cover in a few minutes. We need to look at continuity and resilience for if things go wrong. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Make sure you do sort of keep abreast of what's happening. Follow trusted sites. Keep up to date. You've got the National Cyber Security Centre, you've Cyber Resilience Centres, you've Cyber Protect officers, you've the Information Commissioner's officers. Loads of really great advice out there. Lots of free webinars. Make use of them. And make sure you know to report incidents through the correct channels. As we said earlier, reporting the emails, reporting the text messages, and if the worst should happen, your reporting would be to Action Fraud. So also on that, in terms of a business, if it's a live attack, there is actually 24/7 support available for you. So please do ring out of hours if it is a live attack, i.e. you're going through some sort of malware or ransomware. If it's something historic you're reporting, something happened yesterday, my honest advice to you is to report online, because that is 24/7. You can create accounts, you can save your reports, you can go back to them, you can update them. Obviously, you can't do that on a phone call, and of course, the hours are limited in terms of when you can report. So, some practical advice now. I've given you lots of heads up on sort of how things happen. The biggest steps we can take to defend ourselves and our organisations and our bank accounts even is to ensure that you are using supported operating systems. And by that I mean whatever runs your device, whether that's iOS, whether it's Android, whether it's Windows. Really important note here, Windows 10 ends in October. That's less than 4 months away. You need to be upgrading to 11 now. As I mentioned earlier, the downfall and the impact of WannaCry and NotPetya was simply down to not having installed an update 3 or 4 weeks before. It really does matter. Now, I've put here that antivirus software is a must. It doesn't necessarily have to be additional antivirus, though. So we need to be careful about installing more than one, particularly because it's a bit like two people trying to get in or out of a door at the same time. They can work against each other and it not be very effective. Providing you're using an up-to-date version of Windows, you will have Windows Defender installed and running unless you've turned it off. In terms of additional antivirus, the National Cyber Security Centre have stated that Mac users may wish to install additional antivirus for Apple Macs. There have been a couple more issues than usual with Apple devices there. Providing Android and iPhone users only install apps from the Play Store and the Apple Store, you don't need to install additional antivirus programs on those devices. I will include a link on there so you can read up a little bit more about this in terms of what the National Cyber Security Centre say. But just to recap, it is critical. Whatever software, apps, or programs you use, please do update them as soon as you are alerted to new versions becoming available. Your Windows update, for example, they call it Patch Tuesday. It tends to happen on the first Tuesday of the month. It contains anything between 50 and 120 flaw fixes, if you like. It's not about necessarily changing how something works. It's about where they've found vulnerabilities in the wild that are actively being exploited and then putting out the patch to fix that. Passwords, everybody's favourite subject. I cannot impress upon you how important it is to make sure that you don't reuse passwords across several platforms. You really do need a different one for each login. I want you to think about your passwords as keys, and you would not have one key for all your vehicles, all your premises, your home, because if you lost that one key, somebody could get into everything. In terms of how we remember those, for me, it's about password managers or password hints. So, devices these days will commonly ask you, would you like us to remember this for you? And providing you're the only one that uses the device, then yes, you are safe to do that. In terms of family and shared devices, what we'd recommend is that you have different user profiles set up. So you could have your area, which has got a password to log into your profile on the tablet or the laptop. The kids need to have a separate one, and that way you can save your passwords in your area. But when the kids go onto the likes of eBay, Google, or whatever it is, what they haven't got is the one click and being able to purchase things without you realizing. It's really important not to use words, names, and information that is easily worked out or in the public domain. Please do bear in mind the likes of ancestry sites. If you've got to £5 or £6 to spare, you might even want to have a little jiggle about on 192.com, because it's certainly on individuals, they have as much information potentially as name, address, private email, private phone number, date of birth, and occupation. So we can't use anything that pertains to ourselves because it could be worked out or guessed. Your most important account is your email account. It controls your digital online life. My heart sinks when I get a victim that reports to me that they've been hacked in terms of email, because I know that will not be the only thing affected. When I send out a copy of the slides, I'm also going to include information on SIM swap. Basically, we've seen a trend lately that when your email is compromised, they can then log into your mobile account and request a SIM or eSIM or a PAC code, which effectively means they can then hijack your mobile phone number as well. Unfortunately, it's happening too often. The best practice, we've talked about what not to do. The best practice is to create passwords from 3 random words, putting those together. And quite simply, it makes the password longer, so it's far less susceptible to being computer processed. So you've got the password cracker type software, because it just takes too long. And obviously, it's not guessable because the words are random. Make it a rule to always change the default passwords on any connectable device or router for your own unique ones. And do try to get into the habit of logging out of sites and apps and not just closing the window, because it doesn't terminate the connection. I would urge you to have a quick check of your email addresses on this particular website. It is safe, secure, and free to use. They don't require you to set up an account and you won't be charged, but it will tell you if your email address has been involved previously in data breaches. So you are then at much more risk in terms of either spam or phishing emails. So please do give that a go. Please don't worry about things that you don't recognise. Because of something called consented data, our details get sold on without us realizing, but we have actually agreed to that in terms and conditions that we've agreed to, but possibly not read. What I prefer to do on this site is opt for the Notify Me service. Other than setting up your initial search and they send you one email to confirm it was you, what actually happens is it just sits with a constant running and check 24/7. But this company, this organisation, will only ever contact you if you are involved in a data breach and they find your details. Certainly for me personally, I was involved in LinkedIn, Twitter, and my fitness pole breaches back in the day. And these advised me approximately 7 to 10 days before the relevant organisation. So it does give you a heads up, and you can change your passwords, and it just keeps you nice and secure. This is one of my favourite things to talk about: two-factor authentication. Please, please, please do set this up on everything you can, and particularly please set it up on your email accounts. Two-factor authentication is essentially an additional layer of security. Even if your password is guessed, worked out, stolen, involved in a data breach, etc., it does mean that somebody trying to log in using your details won't be effective. And it is really critically important to protect your email. If your email provider doesn't offer two-factor authentication, that's also known as two-step verification, by the way, I'm afraid my advice is actually going to be that you need to set up a new email and migrate over to it, and it really will be worth your while. In terms of how, it's always going to be in security settings, but www.2fa.directory is a really useful help site. You can type in the name of whatever platform it is you want to get the instructions for, and providing they support 2FA, if you click on the link or the document image, it will actually take you to that organisation's step-by-step instructions. As well as setting up two-step verification on your social media, I just wanted to highlight a couple of extra things you should be doing here. We have seen over the last 3 years a distinct move towards the taking over of particularly company social media sites. So please always use strong and separate passwords for your account, set up that two-step verification. And particularly for Facebook, please have more than one admin on your page. Where accounts are taken over and compromised, generally speaking, the only ones that are recovered successfully are those who have admin connections with different Facebook profiles. It is critically important that anybody who has administrative access to your Facebook page has also got two-step verification set up on their personal profile. It doesn't have to be an employee. This could be somebody that you just really trust. So a sibling, a partner, a parent, a best friend. It really doesn't matter. It's just another way in should the worst happen. Just looking at a couple of extra resources now. We've gone through the bulk of the problems, but I want to offer you some signposting to free resources. This is the National Cybersecurity Centre Cyber Action Plan. You'll see there that there's two options, one for sole traders, small businesses, one for individuals and families. It really does only take about 3 minutes to fill in. It's a short questionnaire where you'll be asked questions about what it is you do and don't do, and it will provide a tailored response on how to improve your cyber security. I've mentioned it a couple of times already. We have the National Cybersecurity Centre website that contains a wealth of free resources, including free online training. So as you can see there, there's advice and guidance, there's blogs, there are things for education. So by that I mean there's lots of articles on typical things. There are infographics on the likes of how to create good passwords, how to protect devices. There are various things you can sign up to keep up to date with what's happening. There's no charge for any of these. So make use of what's out there and get using those free resources. This is actually a little bit older, but I've left it in. I put this together actually during lockdown, but there is quite a wealth of information regarding home working securely. So some still very relevant advice there. There is the free online training module that I spoke about. You need to register for it, but it is free of charge. Takes about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on your abilities. And then the resources and infographics link is there as well. For slightly bigger companies, I know with small to medium encompasses quite a variation in size, the NCSC board toolkit. So really this is tabletop type exercise to facilitate cybersecurity discussions between the board and whoever it is that you have helping you with your IT support. Exercise in a box. I think this is fairly relevant to organisations of all sizes, to be honest. This is a simple online tool where you can test your resilience to different cyber attacks and frauds, and you're able to practice your response in a safe environment. So it'll take you through different scenarios. You will fill in what your response would be, and then it produces a report for you regarding what you're doing well and what you could do even better. So, what about within our own organisations? If you are a small company, test your boundaries and barriers. If you have staff, how would they react to somebody trying to tailgate? What would their response be to phishing emails? Using examples like the email we've seen earlier about wanting transfers of money. Finding an alien device, this is always an interesting one. I think people are inherently good, and if you were to find a memory stick or something, whether it's helpfulness or nosiness is debatable, but plugging that in to see if they can find out who it belongs to return it to its rightful owner, that's a little bit of an issue because that's how attacks can happen as well, because they can be preloaded with malware. It might be an idea that you look at things like having a policy where your USB ports are turned off if they're not required. Why not test these different scenarios? It's something that we do on a regular basis, although I appreciate we are a bigger organisation. Removable media policy. Don't be allowing people to plug in phones and USB drives, etc., if you don't need to. It can be how data breaches occur, well meaning staff who take copies of information home to work on things and then lose that flash drive, etc. Then you're in the whole world of pain of data breaches and information commissioners officers. So narrow down the opportunities for error. Bringing in your own device, BYOD. A lot of organisations do this to keep the cost down or because staff prefer and know their devices better than ones they're being provided with. But it is fraught with issues. So, what we'd say is if you are going to go down that line, or if you have gone down that line, please do see the advice that is available free of charge through the National Cyber Security Centre to mitigate those risks. The internet, do you have an acceptable use policy? What sort of restrictions do you have in place to make sure certain categories of site aren't able to be visited? The more sort of uh, malicious type websites, there's lots of things we can do to protect the business if we do allow staff to use the internet during break times, etc. I would urge you, if it's relevant, to consider Cyber Essentials. So, this is an accreditation scheme where your cyber security is checked. It's a government initiative, relatively cost effective. It's a great badge to have to show to other places that you are actually considering your cyber security and resilience seriously. Lots of information available. What I would say, even if you're not in a position to be able to pay for the accreditation, you can get a list of the questions and assessment that you would go through. And I think it's a really good idea to actually look at those and see what the recommendations are in terms of enhancing your cybersecurity. Because even though you've not gone through the accreditation, you will have stepped up your resilience, providing you follow some of that guidance. Obviously, I'm from Derbyshire Police, so I will promote Derbyshire Alert. You're going to be from all over the country, and many forces have community messaging services within their area. So I would urge you to check your local police page for how to sign up for these free services. It's essentially an email warning system, so you receive information on the location you live or your work address, whichever one you're using. You can actually sign up to the national system of neighbourhood alert, which is the one that we use. Ours is called Derbyshire Alert for obvious reasons, but it's part of the same network, where you will also get advice from National Neighbourhood Watch, Action Fraud, Get Safe Online, etc. There's no cost to it. You can set up more than one account. You can use different addresses. So do have a look at that so that you can learn more. I use Derbyshire Alert to set up and warn and inform, but also to advertise our webinars. You're very welcome to pick a generic Derbyshire address and sign up if you'd like to receive advice and information from us. And then I wanted just to introduce the National Cyber Resilience Centre group. So this is a collaboration between police, government, private sector, academia, and it's all there to help strengthen companies' cyber resilience across SMEs. It is not for profit. It is funded and supported by the Home Office. So if you'd like to know more about that particular setup, I've put the web link there. This is a map of the resilience centres for England and Wales. The Scottish has its own business resilience centre. All these borders and areas are relevant. There is now one for London. The only thing I would say is I'm not 100% on whether the names here are up to date, because I haven't been sent a new one. But do look up your own regional cyber resilience centre. You'll see lots of free resources there. You can sign up to their service for notifications and newsletters, etc. And then Police Cyber Alarm. This is a free tool which helps members understand and monitor potential malicious cyber activity. It consists of monitoring and vulnerability. It's part of a wider defence network where anonymised, shared, collected data is given to analysts at local, regional, and national levels to identify trends. You get information back out of it if there's an issue. It can potentially be used to identify, pursue, and prosecute criminals. There is more information on their website, which is at the bottom of the page there, but I'll just share with you a 2 or 3 minute video that highlights what this service is and what it can mean for you.
Businesses of all sizes and from all sectors are at risk from a cyber attack. Small businesses are suffering thousands of cyber attacks every day, and is costing the small business community billions. Police Cyber Alarm is a free tool to help member organizations understand and monitor malicious cyber activity against their network. It is aimed at businesses and organizations with a firewall and internet connection. Knowledge is key to defense, and that's where Police Cyber Alarm can help your organization. So how does it work? Police Cyber Alarm monitors the logs of traffic seen by your organization's connection to the internet. It will detect and provide regular reports of suspected malicious activity, enabling organizations to minimize their vulnerabilities. Once you become a Police Cyber Alarm member, you install a virtual or physical Police Cyber Alarm collector on your network to collect and process traffic logs from your gateway security devices, such as firewall, IDS, IPS, network antivirus and anti-spam, and UTM devices. These are analyzed to identify suspicious and malicious activity. What data does Police Cyber Alarm collect? The Police Cyber Alarm data collector identifies suspicious activity and related data, and automatically filters out any internal traffic and data from known trusted sources. The remaining data is then encrypted and transmitted to the Police Cyber Alarm servers, where it is analyzed and reported back to your organization. The reports will detail potentially malicious activity identified and received by your collector. You can use these reports for further investigation and to better protect your business. Police Cyber Alarm can also scan your organization's website and external IP addresses for known vulnerabilities and provide regular reports on any vulnerabilities identified. The log data collected from gateway security devices contains information about the suspicious activity, such as source IP address, device ID, and destination port. Antivirus and anti-spam system logs may also include the recipient email, email subject line, and attachment name. The system is designed to protect personal data, trade secrets, and intellectual property. Police cyber alarm is a monitoring system and does not interfere with normal network operations. By becoming a police cyber alarm member, not only are you helping to protect your organization, you are also helping police to build a bigger picture of the extent of malicious cyber activity locally, regionally, and nationally. By using the data provided by police cyber alarm members, police are able to stay up to date with the latest threats and identify potential cyber criminals. To become a police cyber alarm member, simply register via our website, and once approved, a unique code will be emailed to you, which can then be used on the website to complete registration. Once your membership is confirmed, you can display this membership badge on your business website and know that you have taken steps to make your business less vulnerable to a successful cyber attack. Sign up to Police Cyber Alarm today and join our growing membership network of businesses.
So I have been Samantha Hancock. I am the Cyber Protect Officer for Derbyshire Police. Contact details I've mentioned at the start. Oh, I've not changed that slide. Ignore the Facebook bit there. It's actually Derbyshire Police Online Safety now. We've got our own page. So do give us a follow. I will tweak that before I send the PDF over to Emma. I'm also on LinkedIn under Samantha Hancock. And then just to round up, I'll hand back to Emma, who's going to just cover the Lloyds input, I believe.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Sam. That was so much information. Absolutely amazing. So many links, so many things. I've made a big list of things that I want to make sure that I do. So I hope that everyone else has done the same. As you can see, these amazing links, these QR codes, if you scan them on your phone, or you can have a look at them tomorrow when we send out the replay of this. They'll take you to places like how to recognize email scams, how to recognize phone call scams, and some other resources to keep safe as well. So do take a quick QR scan of that. Whilst people are doing that, I will move on to questions. The first question is, does using a VPN make you safer? And if so, I've got Defender and Norton, but is that too many to be using?
I probably wouldn't be using two products together. I mean, it can depend on your vulnerability, but Defender really is very, very good. And I personally don't have anything in addition on my devices. Obviously, I'm possibly a little bit more aware than most, given that what I do for a living. But it might be an idea to do a bit of research on that. I would sort of recommend, she says, it sounds dreadful, but actually Google how the two work together and see what the recommendations come back as. But it can be problematic using two together.
It might
In terms of VPN, that stands for a virtual private network. And yes, it does enhance your security, because essentially what you are doing, how to put it in a lay term, your information, your traffic is encrypted. So it's sort of scrambled as it goes down a tunnel, which means that if it stops it being intercepted, and if it was intercepted, then it wouldn't be of use to anybody else. So end-to-end encryption is quite important. You don't necessarily have to use it on everything. We used to recommend VPNs quite a bit, but a lot of websites you use now are HTTPS as opposed to HTTP. So that means there's security built in when your information is passed between you and the receiving server. There are occasions that I use a VPN. I try not to use too much public free Wi-Fi, because you're never quite sure what the setup is. So if you were having to use public free Wi-Fi, it might be an idea to use a VPN. What I can tell you is from my work perspective, I can't access anything without a VPN. Police forces have to go through one. So yes, it is worthy of consideration.
Fabulous. Thank you. And if you could just pop to the next slide, we've got one last thing to people to scan. If you'd like to share feedback on the webinar, please do scan either of these codes. The left one is for feedback and the right is for the Lloyds Bank website. I'll ask a few more questions if that's okay, Sam. I know we're running out of time. Fab.
Plenty of time.
If Are USBs only dangerous if your PC is set up to autoplay them?
It depends what's on it, to be perfectly honest. Autoplay is not something that I advocate at all. Even on social media, things like my email, etc., I don't have auto run set up. I don't even have auto run to play video clips on social media, etc. I think you have to be really careful with that. You've just got to bear in mind that you don't know what it is that's on the USB. So what we're talking about is things that don't belong to you. You don't know what's been put on it. In terms of generally speaking, as in us using USBs, I would not be concerned. I'm particularly talking about sort of one that's randomly given to you or you find. I'm always very nervous about taking free ones. So we've just got to be cautious and think about where it's come from. But in terms of the auto run, you're quite right. Don't have that enabled.
Next question. This person says, this is really timely as I got an email yesterday from Google saying that my workspace is at risk of phishing because one of the users isn't protected properly. I had a link to press. I'm the only user, so wasn't sure if this was genuine. How can I tell?
I think you need to go through, well, if you don't have any workplace users linked to you, then it will be an obvious scam, is the first thing to say. If you know it's something that you haven't got or you don't have a membership with or a subscription or whatever else. I think I'd be inclined to go through to Google and log in and check that way, because I suspect that if it was an issue, as in a legitimate one, if you've logged into your Google space, there will be some form of messaging on there. But you are absolutely right to exercise extreme caution. Well done.
Would you be able to pop back? Sorry, I know I'm asking you to switch through
Yeah.
to the page. Someone would love to see the page before the map of the regional cyber teams. I think they'd like to have a look at the link.
The National Cyber Resilience Centre.
Regional, yes, thank you. Perfect, lovely.
So that's the overall page which talks about the whole organisation. You will be able to click through and find your region's contact on those as well. I think there's been a change recently, because originally you could sign up for free community membership, which got you certain things free, and then there were additional things and add-on services. So, for example, they have Cyber Pathway, which can mean a student who's coming close to finishing their IT security type degrees, they are taken on and vetted, and they can help with vulnerability scanning and some elements of training and things like that. Each area and what they offer is slightly different. Each resilience centre will be able to advise on what their offerings are. I'm not sure that they had a tiered membership anymore. They did used to have one free one and then chargeable ones. I think now the membership is free, but you pay for the add-on services. So they have a rota of places that are vetted, for example, that can help you in response and recovery. So if you don't have an IT support and something happened, your resilience centre might be able to put you in contact with somebody that's on a rota. There are often cost savings with those things as well, but have a look, see what suits you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sam. This has been amazing. There's so many people saying thank you so much for your time and for a very informative, well worth the hour of my day comment coming from Neil there.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you for all of you for joining today and being so engaged. We really hope that you've taken something away today. Thank you for Lloyds Bank for supporting this webinar. Do have a look at all their extra resources. There's lots out there. And of course, check out this link as well as the other ones that Sam has shared today. Thank you very much. Any final words from you before we go?
ABC, accept nothing on face value, believe nothing until verified, and please challenge and confirm everything. And please, please, please go and set two-factor authentication, two-step verification up on your accounts, particularly your emails.